Metaverse Interoperability.
Hi guys, welcome on stage Mr. K.Nevelsteen, who's going to be talking about Metaverse Interoperability.
So this may be kind of a dry topic for this early in the morning, but we'll try. So I'm going to be talking about Metaverse Interoperability. Before we can do that, we have to actually talk about what the Metaverse is. So there's a plethora of Metaverse articles and descriptions on the internet today, but a lot of these articles conflate what the Metaverse actually is, so there's a lot of ambiguity. One of the aspects is, for example, that they conflate what the Metaverse minimum viable product with the Metaverse of the future. And also that they have a problem with, they define characteristics of the Metaverse which are particular to virtual worlds and that are not necessarily particular to the Metaverse itself. Namely, for example, concurrent users, how many users you can get into a particular world, or the Metaverse. So some people say that a characteristic of the Metaverse is having mass amounts of concurrent users, but this is actually a problem of virtual worlds, not actually a problem of the Metaverse. So if you are in a virtual world, then having a bunch of concurrent users merge on a particular spot is a problem of the virtual world, not of the Metaverse. The users will be spread out across the Metaverse anyway. So another characteristic that people describe with the Metaverse is that it is a distributed system, but the Metaverse is, by definition, a distributed system. So you will have a lot of virtual worlds, and this will be a distributed system of virtual worlds. Now, will it be a peer-to-peer system? So peer-to-peer has a particular amount of advantages, but also has a disadvantage. And one of those disadvantages is that it's not really good on low-power devices. So if you want to have ubiquity and have the Metaverse accessible over lots of devices, then you have to make sure that you can run the Metaverse interface on low-power devices as well. So the Metaverse definition description comes from the book called Snow Crash, and what we can do is we actually can look at the description from the book, and then we can actually do a mapping from the description in the book and towards technology that we have today and get a definition for the Metaverse. And so the definition in this paper that they supply is actually the interconnection of virtual worlds. And they also specify that the Metaverse is mixed reality. Why is it mixed reality? Because virtual worlds exist today that actually are already mixed reality. So therefore, if you interconnect virtual worlds, therefore the Metaverse will also be mixed reality because you will also be connecting those mixed reality virtual worlds. What a misconception is VR required for the Metaverse? And the answer would be no, the VR is not required for the Metaverse. The reason for this is that you have lots of virtual worlds that are already accessible as first-person perspective, but you also want to have ubiquity of devices, so you don't want to specify that only virtual reality interfaces can actually interface with the Metaverse. One question that everyone asks is, does the Metaverse exist? Well, it depends a little bit on who you ask. So some people will say, yes, it does exist because there's a mass amounts of virtual worlds out there today, and so you can do socializing and gaming and everything in these virtual worlds, and so therefore, yes, the Metaverse does exist. And then other people will say, well, no, the Metaverse doesn't exist because I want to take my avatar, my character data, and I want to take it from one virtual world to other virtual worlds, and so therefore the Metaverse doesn't exist. So in one of my publications, I actually go through and I look at the characteristics of the Metaverse, and I use grounded theory to distill out the definition. And what I come down to the conclusion is that interoperability is basically the determining factor whether people think the Metaverse exists or not. So therefore, interoperability is why it's so important to start concentrating on that first when trying to build the Metaverse. The next question would be, a lot of people ask, is Second Life a Metaverse? So in 2003, Linden Labs procured millions of dollars, and they're going to create the Metaverse. And so, yes, they created a Metaverse, but according to the description of the book, they interconnected a bunch of virtual worlds with user-generated content. But the problem is that we've already learned that a metaverse under a single organization is not the metaverse. The reason for this is because if you have a single organization, then you have one organization which can determine all the protocols and all the frameworks required for all the virtual worlds to communicate. So that's not interoperability, that's intraoperability. So the metaverse is also the next version of the internet, which means that for every place where you see the metaverse, you can replace that word with the internet, and then the sentence should still make sense. So for example, with is Second Life a metaverse? Is Second Life an internet? No, it is not. It is an intranet. It is not the internet. This brings me my first tenet. So everyone should be able to set up their own virtual world in the metaverse. And so today, you can, if you want to, you can set up a web server and then you can add it to the internet. Well, by extension, also the same for the metaverse. Everyone should be able to set up their own virtual world and add it to the metaverse. And this excludes Second Life, Fortnite, Roblox, and others from being the metaverse because they don't allow you to set up your own server. You get to set up one of their servers. Now, we can go on to interoperability. So this is a very well-known interoperability comic. And so one of the first positions people take when they say, well, we're going to create the metaverse. Okay, great. We're going to do interoperability. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to define some protocols, or we're going to define a framework. And then if everyone adopts that framework or protocols, then poof, we'll have the metaverse and it'll be done. But this is problematic. The first thing is that in order to achieve that means that you have to get all those people around the table to agree on standards and protocols, which for the internet back in the days was not a problem because it was a small group of people determining the protocols. But nowadays, there's a mass amounts of parties all determining the protocols and standards for the metaverse. So also, when you determine a standards, that means for every change of the standard, that means you have to get all those people back around the table to discuss what changes will be. And there's always going to be stakeholders that say, well, that functionality doesn't suit for my purpose. This means also that if you define standards, you also have to re-engineer systems for those standards, which means you have to walk up to players, to systems and say, your system's been running for 10 years, but now you have to re-engineer it to support the standard. This is really bad for legacy systems where the code is no longer available, or it's really detrimental to try to change that system. So the metaverse is a system of systems where, and this is a key to the aspect of it, is why Second Life is also not the metaverse, or the metaverse, is because of the fact that each system needs to be an independent functioning system. So it's a system of independent systems. Each system also functions independently of others, which means there's emergent properties coming from the system of systems. So if you want to do interoperability, then getting n systems integrated to a fully integrated system is a complexity problem of exponential. So, and then also, every time someone upgrades an interface in that system, then you're going to talk about downtime for virtual worlds in order to upgrade that system to support, to be able to talk with other systems that are still available in the system. This brings me to my second tenet. So each world gets to decide what it wants to import or export. So you can't walk up to a very large player, a dominant player in the metaverse space and say, hey, we want to do interoperability with you, but you're going to have to change your entire system in order to comply with the metaverse protocols. That's just not going to work. And this applies to blockchain as well. So if a lot of virtual worlds just do not want to implement blockchain at this point in time. So you have to be careful on exactly how you approach these virtual worlds. So in 2019, Steinwald, he said basically that Zuzu, so shortly after the sale of Blizzard terminated the account and deleted Zuzu from their system. So, and he said that this is a risk of investing in non-blockchain based digital items. So to a certain degree, that's correct. Blockchain provides syntactical interoperability, which means data exchange, but you also need higher levels of interoperability. So in this case, Blizzard has chosen to cut ties with Zuzu. Even if Zuzu had been on the blockchain, then blockchain can still choose to break ties with Zuzu. So there's no requirement that they have to import or export that data. What this also means is that blockchain itself is a provider of assets and avatars and such, but trusted virtual worlds can also be providers of assets and such. So we're talking about virtual worlds as a service. Steinwall goes on also to talk about the, after the sale, there was an update to the game that essentially made the pink war dogs characteristics basically so that they were devalued from $38,000 to $4,000 to $8,000. So again, here you can't go up to a system and say you're required to import this feature set. They have chosen to nerf that item, so you cannot prevent that item from being nerfed. They have chosen to import that item or not. This brings me to my third tenet, which is that world owners should be able to choose, should have complete control over their world. So that means that basically when you have a world owner, it's their world. So they have done careful determination of a game balancing for their world. And so you can't walk up to them and say, hey, you're going to have to implement this feature set, because they have balanced their game to their specifications, and so you can't force them to adopt. Now, this tenet kind of goes against some people have the idea of that, well, I want to be able to take all my assets everywhere from one virtual world to the other virtual world. Yeah, okay, great, that's fine, but that's not going to be possible because of the fact that you're going to be trying to force a virtual world to import your assets. It won't work. So now we can talk about interoperability. So in 2003, around the same time as Second Life, my colleague and myself, we developed IPSME. And so we started with a toy problem of how to integrate the Barbarian for World of Warcraft with a patient journal system from hospitals. And so why is this even important? Why would those systems want to be integrated? So, and basically what we came up with is a set of conventions to communicate. Now, we're not talking about protocols or frameworks here. We're talking about a mechanism on how systems can communicate using ready available resources. So this is how to communicate, not what to communicate. So each system is still speaking their own protocol, but we're determining how these systems can communicate with each other. So the unique selling points for IPSME, that we're not avoiding standards, we're avoiding the need for standards. So what we're saying is, if there's a standard in the ecosystem, then that's fine. We can reduce the complexity by having standards in the ecosystem, but we don't want to force standards to be used. So every system should be able to speak their own protocol. This means that there's going to be support for legacy systems. And then you can have translations between systems, and these translations are external to the systems being integrated, which means that instead of upgrading each system every time there's a change in API, you're upgrading the translation or adding a translation dynamically to the system, to a running system. You're not talking about downtime. So this means also there's also the capability of having translations be transitively applicable, which means if you have a translation from a system A to B and B to C, then you also have an implied translation from A to C. This means that you're having a reduction in complexity, reducing the complexity of integrating n systems, a fully integrated system from an n times n minus 1 over 2 to a linear n minus 1. What you also have is the ability to query the network. So say, for example, that you want to translate from one system to another system, but you require a translation from, say, for example, GLTF to Collada. Then you can actually query the system and say, hey, does anyone actually support this translation? And you can actually reuse that translation. IPSME is both useful for client-side and server-side interoperability. Now, I don't think very many people are accustomed to these terms. So client-side operability allows for ubiquity of devices. It allows each device to actually switch worlds to make sure that you can actually switch between worlds when traveling through the metaverse. And server-side interoperability is allowing servers to negotiate assets and player data between each other. Now it's time for a little of a demo because this is really hardcore. So I'm going to play some videos for you so you can take a look of how it might look. So while we're here, let's pick up some stuff. Like we'll pick up some grenades, and over here there's some armor. And then I want to make myself really powerful. I'm going to go pick up myself a rocket launcher as well. And then I'm going to drag all these items back to the world of Minecraft. Now, actually importing all the weapons of Doom into Minecraft would be a serious integration problem. But to ease that problem, what we do is instead of actually importing the items, we're actually going to make a mapping between the two worlds. So for example, the rocket launcher I have translated into a diamond sword in Minecraft. The grenades are represented as the TNT or the dynamite, and I actually picked up some armor, and then you see I got a leather tunic here for 50 armor points. I got the leather tunic. So I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to make it a little bit quicker. So you can see then there's basic interoperability in this video. I'm actually doing a semantic mapping between items. If you want higher levels of interoperability, then you need to actually also import the features of each item. So for example, if you want the rocket launcher in Minecraft, then you're going to actually also have a translation for the visual data and also the behavior of that rocket launcher when you teleport. So I'm going to skip my next video so that we can round off. So my next question is, does anyone want the metaverse? And so I'm not sure about the Facebook version of it, but basically I want to have the minimal viable product first, which means that I would like to just enable like something to be able to teleport between virtual worlds. And what a lot of people have a problem with when they're trying to build the metaverse is that they have the empty world problem, is that they try to build a platform and then they have to try to attract users to that platform. But this is the empty world problem, and in order to avoid that, you don't build a new world. That means you're competing with other virtual worlds for users. What you want to do is you want to glue together existing worlds. And so what I'm proposing is an industry of integrations. So that means that anyone who knows the APIs between two systems can actually do a translation between those systems and then also monetize that integration. So this means that as an integrated system of systems can come up and be developed organically. So you can have an ecosystem, which is the metaverse. And this is all possible via IPSME. Thank you very much.